Okay, I wanted to show you some of my work, introduce myself, and part of who I am as an artist. I went to art school for drawing and painting, and that was a really fun experience. And I like to make art for art's sake. I mean, I don't necessarily want to get involved in the gallery world or the world of trying to promote myself to sell art. What I do for a living is graphic design, desktop publishing work, and I teach part-time, just this one class. And that's how I make my living. That takes a lot of energy and time, and I make a living. And art, for me, is something that I don't want anybody else to have to tell me what to do. There was a time where I took a lot of advice from others, teachers, mentors, other artists. And that's great, and I think everybody learns from everybody else. But at some point, I think an artist, capital A, real artist, gets to a point where they just, they want to find something. Like if you ever watch 6 Feet Under, there's a character that goes to art school, a young Claire, and she has a teacher who inspires her. And on the first day, he has everybody do a drawing, and then he reminds everybody that everything's derivative. And he says that the reason you're drawing like other artists is because you don't think your own vision, your own personal vision and self as an artist is worthy. And he said, but that's bullshit. And it is. Ultimately, you need to find, I think, in art, something like an inner eye, and it has to be something that no one is telling you what to do. And so for that reason, and also selling just involves a lot of time and energy and money that I don't want to invest because I have other things I'd rather invest that into. So, anyways, this is an art book that I'm finishing up. I'm nearly done, and I thought that I would do something about global warming. And so for me, I wanted to put that idea into a piece and make kind of an accordion shape out of it. I use paint, white, black, silver, and purple paint. I also use aluminum foil, paper that has a silver shiny surface, brown paper that epoxied on, and I think at some point I use black garbage bags. And so this is kind of one side, this is the other side. I wanted to have it be presentable as something where I could say, now, this represents kind of a glimpse where I think we are now, and then maybe a glimpse into what might be 100 years from now. This black could come out. Stretch out this way. And I wanted a kind of a prehistoric look, almost like it was something, a cave wall or something. And we can flip through it. And I wanted the different pages to kind of look different from each other. I wanted to create enough contrast where it wasn't just all the same. This almost seems like one big page. The idea of the folds, maybe my graphic design experience comes into play here. This would be like an accordion fold, I believe. And as you flip through it, you see these different elements come into play. This is more brown and gray and silver and black and white. Now it gets to be a lot more purple. And this is the garbage bags, I think, right here. It's very simplified page near the end, and then kind of gets darker, and that begins the second half, which is a glimpse ahead. So the viewer can really do a lot of different things with the book in terms of how you look at it and how you open it. So you could do something like this. Maybe like 2 pages, So I just want to show you, the latest project that I'm looking at that relates to my fine art side. I also have some prints that I've been doing on the computer. I'll show you those as well. Okay, I'm just going to show you 3 prints, 3 of my most recent prints. And I'm trying to abstract more, I'm trying to simplify more. Initially, some of these were paintings, some of these were digital files, just vector images. I have these open now in Illustrator, which is a vector graphics program by Adobe. But anyways, a lot of these had more detail in terms of the contours, the edges. It was more precise, and I thought that it needed to be just simplified more surreal or dreamlike, more, a little bit abstract expression-y. Meaning you sort of do away as much as you can with the background-foreground idea, and you make the entire composition just completely balanced, in a way where everything has the same kind of weight. Okay, we'll talk more about balance coming up. So I can see some of these being prints on, sort of like a poly fabric. Okay, so this is one that started out as a painting initially. It was inspired by a fruit tree that I saw at the Olbrich Gardens. I went to the conservatory, excuse me, and they have a big fruit tree there. That was the actual inspiration. I took pictures and did a drawing, and that's how this one started. This one started as a drawing I did of a living room. It was in a house where I was staying at the time, and it was just me and the pets. On a beautiful day, and I just did a drawing on a chalkboard originally, I believe. There was plants and an open window and animals all around me, and it was a beautiful day. A lot of light was coming in, and it was more realistic, after I did the drawing and then a painting, and I just kept fussing around with it, But now that I'm doing a graphic version of it, again, I'm trying to simplify as much as I can to show more stream of consciousness, more reflecting in water possibly, which has symbolic undertones, undercurrents, so to speak. For me, and for a lot of artists, less is really more as you go through the process. Making something better is very often taking away more than it is adding. It's a combination of taking away, simplifying, and changing values and colors. And then finally, I'll show you. This one's a little more jarring to look at, I think. I think this one's about a tree as well as the first one was. I call it shaman because there was a tree outside my apartment where I used to live in Madison, and there was always these crows that would come like clockwork annually, I think it was, or biannually or something like that. But when they would come, they would mass in the trees outside my back window. There were these huge, majestic trees, a row of them. And so these crows, and there's also a wire, an electric wire. So they would come and make a racket, and just be awe-inspiring. And so this was kind of inspired by that, and the idea of, a tree as a symbol of a shaman, also a tree as a symbol of the Druids, like long ago. So it's a powerful symbol, and I started from that. And I think, to me, what this one is starting to show with the black and the kind of simulation, or excuse me, the simplifications that seem kind of more jarring in this case. The edges are not so soft and curvilinear as they are kind of jagged. So it's got this visceral appeal, especially with the black and the red, I think. Keeping with blue and green, which is closer to nature as far as sky, water, earth, trees, the environment. But I think this one is showing more of a jarring element to nature, a force. So I just want to show you those 3. And this is my screensaver currently. I did a figure drawing. I did a lot of figure drawing throughout the years. I don't do it hardly at all anymore. I'd like to get back into it, but this was from a session, 30-minute pose maybe, if I can remember correctly. And I was doing this style then where I would just make sure I would get the mouth and the eyes, which I found are really important for likeness. If you can nail the the mouth and the eyes, that's really important, and the shape of the head. And I simplified. I just kept it to what I thought was the most important part. Her body is sort of statuesque. I used to call this Roman Gaul because it kind of looks like a painting, or a dying Gaul, I think I would call this, because it looked like a painting from either a Greek or Byzantine painting called Dying Gaul. So anyways, if I click on Publisher, this is the intro I did for this semester. And what I'm going to do is just kind of show you different techniques, okay? I've got 2 pages. The way to make a new page is you can click in between or on one of the pages, right-click, and go Insert Page. And you can choose before and after, blank page, duplicate, etc. Control Z is undo. You can keep going backwards with Control Z. That's universal. You probably know that already. Let's look at the font I chose for the headline. That's one of the first things I think you need to think about is font, okay? And there's free fonts you can get from the internet. And I'll show you a site called thefont.com that I like. And there's lots of free fonts, and you can do a search initially. I did a chalkboard search, I think, but just to show you how this works, I'm going to do a couple of different searches. Let's start with, how about tree of life search. Hit search, and now you've got all these fonts. Well, in this case, just one, I guess, called Tree of Life, and it's not the worst font. Actually, I kind of like it. If you want to see what your headline looks, in the preview window, click inside and type in your headline. In my case, it'll be my name. Oops, type too fast. And then click Submit. You can choose how many fonts per page, what size, and that'll show you, more like what your headline's going to look like. Okay, say if you like it, hit download. You can also donate to the author, which is kind of interesting. Download, and what you're looking for is I guess I have Windows 10. I still not really sure how to use it exactly. Okay, so it automatically opened the file. It may be, depending on what operating system you have, you'll click download and you'll save the download, and it'll be a zip folder. It'll be a compressed folder, usually a zip, and if you click on it, you'll see usually one or more files which are true type font files, and that's almost always what you're going to get. If you download anything that looks like an exe or executionable file, don't click on it, because you never want to install like a software program. Like it could be something like it'll make you think like all you need to do to get the font is to download this program to open it with. I would recommend against that. You can get viruses really easily that way. And there may be legitimate ones. Just this is how you do a free font. It's usually a zip file folder. You double click it, or if you have Windows 10, it'll automatically open it. Double click on the font. I'll show you a preview. Click install. And now it's on your system. I think the font was Chalkboard. There it is. This is the one I used for my intro. So you had to do Chalkboard as one word, not two, for this to come up. Download. Open. Double click. Install. So that's how you install a free font from a site called thefont.com. There's other sites that you can use as well. So if you insert text by drawing a text box, can't type today for some reason. Okay, now let's center my text in the text box. There's a preview here in your text box tools format that shows you a center point and then different points around that. And what that means is you can set where you want your text to start from and what text alignment scheme you'll be using. and I want mine centered in the middle of it. And you can change the font size up here. I was lucky, it was just right. If you choose Control Shift right and left brackets, which are the keys just to the left of the question mark on your keyboard, you can go up and down in increments, usually 2-point increments. I'm not sure exactly. I think you can change that. And that can give you more control over your font sizing. Now I want to show you how to kern. Okay, first let's choose the font we want. Double click. I'm going to choose Chalkboard, which I just downloaded. Now you see how it's too big? If you go to Control Shift left bracket, you can make it smaller. Again, or go up to your drop down font size, and then you have to choose exactly. Okay, I think that's the right size. Close enough anyways. Now, you see how there's more space between the J and the E than the E and the R? What happens is there's an imaginary box around each letter. And part of what you pay for when you pay for fonts is to correct for these kinds of kerning problems, in the program of the font itself. But if it's not programmed to be, very complex, it'll just simplify by just, saying there's a left, top, bottom, and right point, which is like an imaginary box around each letter. Okay, so where, the bottom of the J starts, all the way up to the top, and then all the way to the right and left. Okay, depending on how big in points that letter is, there's an imaginary box. And the spacing is exactly the same for each letter. So actually the J and the E, if you think of them as contained in a box, is exactly the same space as the E and the R. They just look farther and closer apart because of the nature of the shapes and how they relate to each other and create negative space. Negative space you can imagine in between the letters where you could pour water into. So if you want to fix that, you're going to be kerning. So just click inside the area you want to get tighter. Okay, go home, and then you can see you will have an icon here. If you hover over it, it says character spacing. Click that. I'm sorry, click more spacing. You can choose a very tight, normal, loose, very loose, but that's going to be tracking, meaning doing every letter at once. I want to do just the letters in between that cursor, just 2 letters, which is kerning. Okay, so you click on character spacing, and then you have a choice. You can go tracking, which is all the letters at once, more together or more apart, or you can go kerning, which is just the space between 2 letters. Okay, and you can choose a drop down. I'm going to click condense because I want to make them closer, and then you can click your arrow and watch the example sample on the bottom. You see if I click down, they get tighter. If I click up, they get more far apart. It shows you on all the letters, but because I have the cursor only between 2, that's all it's going to affect. So I click OK, and I see how the J and E came a little closer together. I need to do a lot more, though. So back to character spacing, more spacing. And again, it defaults to condense now. I want to go way down, I think, to, I'm going to choose 15 with my cursor, and then click Tab, and click OK. Now you see how the J and the E got much closer. That's kerning, and that's how you do it, okay? Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this. Photo, how I did it, okay? I did a background which is transparent, and I'm going to show you how to do that soon in Photoshop. And that's going to be a PNG file that I imported inside. You're either going to be importing a JPEG or a PNG file. Okay, those are the 2 files that are normally for the web because they're compressed, but if you compress them at 300 pixels per inch and big enough, they still can look okay printed, and they also look fine on the screen. Okay, it's a balance between having something that you can email, show as a presentation, where it's more like being on the web because it's a giant screen. Okay, and the presentation doesn't have to be so perfect with the quality, but you're also printing it to these books, like where I work, for example. So the printing in color on nice paper still has to look good, but it's a compromise, okay? You can make that happen with JPEGs and PNG files. And Publisher won't let you import like anything that's an Adobe product. You need to make sure that your text box, anytime you insert one, that you turn off wrap text. I'm going to show you that one more time here. And insert text box. And the first thing you want to do, if you don't want a text wrap, is go to your drawing tools and go to wrap, drawing tools format, and then where it says wrap text, choose none. Okay, you should do that to every text box and picture box. Anytime you insert anything, you should always go make sure that it's not wrapping, because that'll interfere when they start overlapping. Things will start shifting and acting funny, so be aware of that. If you want to do a text wrap, I'm going to show you how to do this, not in this video module quite yet, but I will show you that soon. And then one more thing, in this video series, I'm going to show you how I did that background, okay? Background can be a function of just Publisher. If I go to Page Design, Background, I can choose a color, go to More Backgrounds, choose a solid fill if I wanted, and then with the fill color navigation here, it's a drop down, I can choose more colors, and that'll give you the most control over color, okay? I would stick with just custom. You can work in RGB or CMYK. Again, it depends on what you're going to be doing. Sometimes you're doing both print and web, and it's okay to work in CMYK. It's up to you, honestly, because most printers can convert it to CMYK anyways, process printing. We'll talk more about that as well. But if you want to do it to CMYK, just simple drop down, just go to CMYK. And you can build, if you know what your builds are, you can play around with that. CMYK is simply magenta, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and the percentages are from 0 to 100%, which is what percentage is. So you can choose 0, right now it's 25% cyan, 18% magenta, and no yellow and no black, okay? So that's how that works. You can also drag this slider up and down, and that's like a contrast of tint, which is most black, or excuse me, which is most white, to shade, which is most black, okay? So it's a contrast from tint to shade. And then within that, you can choose the hue, which is your color. So you can see as I'm clicking inside this field of color, if you look down at the CMYK build, you see how it's changing every time. So that's how you would affect the color of your background. So I'm going to click cancel. But you can also do a background which is just an image that you've gotten from the web or that you've made yourself. In my case, I photoshopped an image which I got from the web, which was of a chalkboard. And you can make it a background as well by going to Page Design, Background, More Backgrounds. Instead of solid fill now, you would choose Picture, and then click File. And I'm going to navigate to my desktop or my desktop folder. There we go. Nope, that's not it. Well, let's just choose this one. I think I had the blackboard somewhere, but I'm going to choose Diangol Black, Insert, and click OK. And now it automatically makes that photo a background with bleeds and everything. And I'm going to show you more about bleeds coming up soon as well. Okay, well, that's how you would do a picture as a background, just same as you would a color fill. So it's home, background, more backgrounds. Okay?